Okay, welcome students. This is lesson 8.1. So we're going to cover the terms of sexual reproduction. This is the union of the nuclei of an ovum and a sperm cell. And those are each called gametes. Each gamete contains half the number of chromosomes of a normal body cell. So half from the sperm and half from the ovum. Gametes are produced in the gonads. The female gonads are the ovaries, and the male gonads are the testes. So, how does fertilization occur? An ovum leaves the ovaries and then travels through the fallopian tube, and fertilization takes place if sperm cells are present and unite with the ovum. The fertilized egg then implants and then divides to form a ball of cells called a zygote, which later turns into an embryo and then a fetus. So the organs of the female reproductive system from the lateral view are the ovaries, fallopian tubes, uterus, cul-de-sac, vagina, Bartholin glands, clitoris, perineum. Okay, so that was all kind of in order from top to bottom. Looking at a lateral view. Okay, who remembers when the fertilized egg implants and then divides to form a ball of cells? What is that called? That is the zygote, right? D. So we're going to continue with the anterior view. We're going to look at the ovary, utero-ovarian ligament, ovarian follicles, ovum, the corpus luteum, and the fallopian tube. So this is our anterior view. The fundus, the corpus, the uterus, endometrium, myometrium, uterine serosa, cervix, vagina, uterine artery and vein, broad ligament, utero-ovarian ligament, the ovary, corpus luteum inside the ovary, as well as ovarian follicles, and then an ovum making its way out of the ovary. There's fimbriae on the edge of the fallopian tube. All right, we'll look at the anatomical structures of the breast in a sagittal view. There will be glandular tissue, fatty tissue, ducts, and sinuses. Also lymph nodes up here, the pectoralis major and pectoralis minor muscles underneath the breast, glandular tissue attached to ducts, attached to sinuses, all surrounded by fatty tissue, and then the ribs are back here underneath the pectoral muscles. Menstruation. So during the menstrual cycle, on days 1 through 5, the blood cells, endometrial cells, and glandular secretions are being discharged from the body. During day 6 through 12, estrogen aids the repair of the endometrium, and the ovum grows in the follicle. Around day 13 or 14, the egg leaves the ovary and passes through the fallopian tube. And then day 15 to 28, the corpus luteum secretes progesterone and the uterus lining builds up again. Now, if fertilization occurs, then pregnancy concurs, and this process will halt. But if there's no fertilization, then it begins again after the uterine lining has built up to go back to day 1, where they begin to discharge from the body. So here we have the days down here, back to starting at day 1 and then back to day 1. You can see what's happening in the uterus here with the uterine lining. It gets emptied, and then as it repairs, it builds up and then breaks down again. It's peaking at ovulation and then troughing during menstruation. And then in the ovary, you can see that you have low estrogen progesterone here during menstruation, and then it peaks at ovulation. And the ovarian follicle with the ovum is maturing, and then the ovum releases, and the corpus luteum secretes the estrogen and progesterone at peak at ovulation time. And if no fertilization, there's low levels of estrogen and progesterone again. So, as I said, if fertilization occurs, the egg implants in the uterine endometrium. The placenta forms and attaches to the uterine wall. Amnion holds the fetus in an amniotic cavity. Nutrients, oxygen, and wastes exchange between the fetus and the mother. The placenta produces human chorionic gonadotropin, commonly referred to as HCG. So here you see the egg or the ovum being released from the ovary down, making its way through the fallopian tube. Fertilization occurs here, and then when it gets down to the uterus, it implants into the endometrium. That is known as implantation. And here's an image depicting the placenta, which is attached here, you can see, to the uterus wall with internal blood vessels, the umbilical cord connecting it to the fetus. There's umbilical arteries and a vein. This is the chorion, the edge of the sac, and then the amniotic cavity and the amnion. Who remembers what the corpus luteum secretes monthly to build up the lining of the uterus? Anybody remember? So that is the progesterone. C. Progesterone builds up the lining of the uterus. And what does the placenta secrete during pregnancy? That is HCG, the human chorionic gonadotropin. Answer is B. So during pregnancy, progesterone maintains placenta development. The uterus expands as the fetus grows, and then the normal delivery fetal position is referred to as cephalic presentation, which just means that it's the head first, head of the fetus. There are 3 phases of labor. First one is dilation and thinning of the cervix. 2 is the birth of the infant, and then 3 is the subsequent delivery of the placenta, also known as the afterbirth. So here's an image depicting the cephalic presentation of the infant, coming out here head first. And then afterwards, delivery of the placenta. It detaches from the uterus wall. The amnion is still in there, and sometimes the umbilical cord is cut. Sometimes people now leave it on for a much longer period of time. Hormonal interactions. So the pituitary secretes follicle-stimulating hormone, FSH, and luteinizing hormone, LH. The pituitary stops producing those hormones during pregnancy and then when oral contraceptives are being taken. So that suppresses the production of FSH and LH because they are no longer needed. Menopause is the gradual ending of the menstrual cycle. It normally begins between ages 45 and 55. It's characteristic with falling estrogen levels. And there is an option for estrogen replacement therapy, or also it's referred to as hormone replacement therapy, HRT, but there's definitely risks to these therapies, so careful consideration should definitely be required. Okay, so our terms. Adnexae uteri, that is the fallopian tubes, ovaries, and supporting ligaments. Amnion is the innermost membranous sac surrounding the developing fetus. Areola is the dark pigmented area surrounding the breast nipple. Bartholin glands are small mucus-secreting exocrine glands at the vaginal orifice. These are named after Caspar Bartholin, who was a Danish anatomist who described them back in 1637. The cervix, which is the lower portion of the uterus that kind of looks like a neck. Chorion is the outermost layer of the two membranes surrounding the embryo. Clitoris is sensitive erectile tissue that's anterior to the opening of the female urethra. Coitus is sexual intercourse, also known as copulation. Corpus luteum is the empty ovarian follicle that secretes progesterone after the release of the egg cell. And this actually means yellow body. Corpus is body, right? Luteum is yellow. Cul-de-sac is the region in the lower abdomen midway between the rectum and the uterus. Embryo is the stage in prenatal development from 2 to 8 weeks. The endometrium is the inner mucous membrane lining of the uterus. Estrogen. This is the hormone produced by the ovaries that promotes female secondary sex characteristics. Fallopian tube, one of a pair, so there's 2 fallopian tubes. These are ducts through which the ovum travels to the uterus. The oviduct is the other name for it, and this is named after Gabriello Falloppia, an Italian anatomist. Fertilization is the joining or union of the sperm cell and the ovum from which the embryo develops. Fetus. This is the stage in prenatal development from 8 to 39 or 40 weeks. Fimbriae, which is the plural. The singular would be fimbria. These are the finger or fringe-like projections at the end of the fallopian tubes. Follicle-stimulating hormone. This is secreted by the pituitary gland to stimulate maturation of the ovum, FSH. Gamete. That's either a male or female sexual reproductive cell. So for men, that would be the sperm, and women, it's the ovum. Genitalia. That is the reproductive organs, also called genitals. Gestation is the period that occurs from fertilization of the ovum to the birth of the infant. Gonad is the reproductive organ that produces sex cells and hormones. For men, it's the testes, and women, it's the ovary. Gynecology is the study of female reproductive organs, including the breasts. Human chorionic gonadotropin, HCG, that is the hormone produced by the placenta to sustain pregnancy by stimulating ovaries to produce estrogen and progesterone. The hymen is a thin mucous membrane that partially or completely covers the opening to the vagina. Labia are the lips of the vagina. Lactiferous ducts are tubes that carry milk within the breast. Luteinizing hormone, LH, is secreted by the pituitary gland to promote ovulation. Mammary papilla is the nipple of the breast. Menarche is the beginning of the first menstrual period, which is the ability to reproduce. Menopause is the gradual ending of menstruation. Menstruation is the monthly shedding of the uterine lining. The myometrium is the muscle layer of the uterus. Remember, myo means muscle. Neonatology is the branch of medicine that studies the disorders and care of the newborn. Newborns are also referred to as neonate. Obstetrics is the branch of medicine concerned with pregnancy and childbirth. Orifice is an opening. Ovarian follicle is the developing sac that includes each ovum within the ovary. The ovary is one of a pair. There's two ovaries. They're female organs on each side of the pelvis. They're almond-shaped, and they produce egg cells and hormones. Ovulation is the release of the ovum from the ovary. And the ovum is a mature egg cell, which is the female gamete. Ovum is singular and plural is ova, more than one egg cell. Parturition is the act of giving birth. This is often abbreviated as para. Perineum is the area between the anus and the vagina in females. Pituitary gland, this is the endocrine gland at the base of the brain. It produces hormones that stimulate ovaries, and there's also lots of other hormones that it produces as well that regulates other organs. Placenta is the vascular organ attached to the uterine wall during pregnancy. It allows the exchange of oxygen, nutrients, and fetal waste products between the mother and the fetus. Pregnancy is the condition of having a developing embryo and fetus in the female uterus. It says for about 40 weeks, but of course we know that not all pregnancies last 40 weeks. That is the average gestation period. Progesterone, this is the hormone produced by corpus luteum in the ovary and placenta of pregnant women. Puberty is the point in life cycle at which sex characteristics appear and gametes are beginning to be produced. The perimetrium is the outermost layer surrounding the uterus, also referred to as the uterine serosa. The uterus is the hollow, pear-shaped, muscular female organ in which the embryo and fetus develop and from which menstruation occurs. Vagina is a muscular, mucosa-lined canal extending from the uterus to the exterior of the body. Vulva is the external female genitalia. This includes the labia, hymen, clitoris, and vaginal orifice, so it's all of those wrapped up together. Zygote is the stage in prenatal development from fertilization and implantation to 2 weeks. So that's a pretty short time period. So it's only a zygote for the first 2 weeks. Okay. Which term refers to the inner mucous membrane lining of the uterus? Remember that one? Oops. Let's go back. It should be the endometrium. A. Okay, here's our combining forms, suffixes, and prefixes. Amni or amnio for amnion, Bartholino, cervico, chorio, coriano, colpo, coldo, episio, galacto, gyneco, hystero, lacto, mammo, masto, meno, metro, myo, myomo, natty, obstetro, or uo, ufero, ovo, ovo, ovario, ovulo, perineo, foro, salpingo, utero, vagino, vulvo. The suffixes are archi, sciasis, gravida, paris, rhea, salpinx, tosia, version, dis, oh here we're in our prefixes again, dis, endo, in, intra, multi, nulli, pre, primi, retro. Okay, which term means the removal of the breast? So, mammoplasty. That mammo is breast, right? Plasty is surgical repair. So that's not it. Mastitis. Okay, we know itis means inflammation, so that's not it. Hysterectomy. So ectomy sounds right for removal, right? But hystero is for the uterus. So mastectomy would be masto or masti for a breast and ectomy for removal. So the correct answer is B. And that's the end of lesson 8.1.